welcome back to another episode of Marvel News Desk, the official podcast of MCU Exchange. This is your best place to keep up with all the latest news, reviews, and speculation concerning the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you guys have been with us a long time, this is our first time officially branded as Marvel News Desk. You'll probably see some different places online that we've got a new logo and we've changed the color scheme up a bit, so hopefully this episode is still getting to you just like normal. Not much has changed, but you can tweet at us now at Marvel News Desk is our new Twitter handle, but we'll talk about that at the end of the episode as well. As usual, I have Adam and Rhiannon with me today, and I think we're ready to get into it. You guys feeling good? All right. Let's start off talking about Punisher. So this week we had a little bit of casting. They have added, and I'm going to butcher her name, but I believe it's Shoreh Aghdashloo. She's been in 24. She's been in some rather really acclaimed things, and she is joining their cast. I would guess it has something to do with his military past. She's an actress that often plays somebody from the Middle East or somebody who's a Islamic American or something like that. Given some of these flashbacks that we've seen about him and his time in, I think, Afghanistan and Iraq, I'm guessing that's where she fits in, but that's just, based on kind of her ethnicity and her background. You guys excited to see her added to the cast? Any thoughts on adding her on?
I don't know much about her, and it feels odd to be adding casting news right now, unless it's just like that this is somebody that they're wanting to include in their press tour. So I don't have any other strong thoughts.
Yeah, she had to have filmed it a long time ago, right? In order for that to be part of the show.
Right. They stopped filming in March, April, sometime this past spring. So, obviously she's known that she is in the cast, unless they've gone back and added some scenes or something. You don't hear as much about that with television as you do movies. Movies, it's common to go back and do some reshoots at the end. But it's just very weird for them to be officially announcing this right now.
Yeah, I know her mostly from, she was on a season of 24. She was the wife of one of the terrorists, and her son found out what dad was up to or was kind of involved in it, and her son had doubts, and she was torn between being loyal to her husband or being loyal to her son. The thing I remember mostly is her son's name was Barus. And there was just about 48 scenes in that show where she was just crying and going, Barus, Barus. So every time I see her now, in the back of my head, I just hear Barus. So hopefully that will be better. It's just flashbacks to something I did not enjoy in season 4 of 24. So
maybe she'll get some good crying scenes to erase that memory for you.
Yeah, she's actually a pretty acclaimed actress, though. I think she's maybe not Oscar nominated, but she was in some significant movies and stuff even back, 10 years ago or so. So, also, we had some news from Manila today. One of our members at MCU Exchange, Charles, went to a convention out there, and someone suggested that another hero might appear in Punisher. Charles was speculating about who that might be. Rhiannon, do you have any hopes of who might show up in Punisher? I think you have some ideas on this.
Okay, yeah, I have some major ideas on this. So I'm gonna throw a quick spoiler warning here, because it's hard to talk about any of my ideas without talking about the ending of Defenders. So if you haven't yet gotten all the way to the end of Defenders, jump ahead a couple of minutes.
Yeah, it'll be on the timestamps.
Yeah, he'll have some timestamps here. And if you don't, this is a potential spoiler, because if you look on IMDb, Chris Brewster shows up on Punisher episode 1 and episode 13. Chris Brewster is Matt Murdock or Charlie Cox's stunt double. So that to me says we're going to see Daredevil in the Punisher. So to me, because I just can't imagine. Chris Brewster has also doubled for other members of the Marvel Universe. He's been Captain America. He had some little bits, I believe, in Spider-Man. You know, he's a trusted stunt double. But they were filming, I mean, Punisher was so close to Defenders that I believe he would have been too busy prepping the Defenders to have just been pulled off to be a random stunt double in an action scene on Punisher. I believe if he's there, he's going to be there because Daredevil is going to be there. So I have my own theories and stuff of how and why and what that could be for Punisher, and I could probably devote a whole podcast to that. But if we're guessing what hero, if it's a hero we've already met, I'm thinking Daredevil, even if it's flashbacks, just to get us to where Frank is right now.
Absolutely. Him, or as I believe one of the choices in the article said, because the whole army background, a little Mark Spector. I don't think we can go wrong with that. But yeah, I would guess a Daredevil cameo or appearance makes most sense at the moment. I did find it odd that I guess CB Cebulski was running this panel, and I think he's like a talent scout for the comics. So I'm just wondering how in tune he is with the actual TV stuff. Because last I knew, I thought he, went out and scouted out artists and writers for the actual comics. So I thought that was really interesting that they would have him moderating some sort of Marvel TV panel. But I guess we'll see. Maybe he got promoted.
And it was interesting to me that this was like a legit panel. I mean, we know about it because Charles was at it. I would never know about this conference otherwise. But he got to see the same Punisher footage that Rhiannon saw at San Diego Comic-Con. He got to see a bunch of movie a lot of it was repeats. It wasn't anything new, but he got to see stuff that I haven't seen. So it seems like they did send some decent stuff to that panel,
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think if he said it, I mean, these Marvel guys know what they're saying when they say stuff like that. So to say another hero is showing up in Punisher, I think we can take that as it's actually happening.
Yeah, I would like to see them. I mean, the Moon Knight thing I think is exciting because I would like to see them seed sort of future stuff. One of the fun of watching Marvel movies is you're always waiting for that moment, like in that rooftop scene in Winter Soldier where he's like, all these people like Tony Stark and Stephen Strange, and everyone's like, ooh, Stephen Strange, you name dropped another character. Like those looks ahead are one of the exciting things about the films, and they've gotten really good about introducing characters in other films and then giving them their own solo. I would like to see that in the Netflix stuff, like seeds of what's next at Netflix. It's nice to see Punisher added, but I would like, I don't know, I want to keep seeing Netflix do some different things, and so I'm excited to see more characters kind of. That's actually a disappointment I have with Defenders, is there wasn't any like future characters kind of seeded as much as I would have liked. So. All right, let's move on to ABC had some really weird news this week. Apparently, ABC is working on a show that was described as Jessica Jones-esque. There was some comments from, I didn't write down the name, it's Kareem somebody who works for Marvel. And they were talking to, I believe, Deadline or Variety, one of the trades. And they said that there's a female show along the lines of Jessica Jones that's being worked on for ABC. Do you guys have a hope for what that is? What do you think that means? What are your hopes of what's coming from ABC?
I know everybody's been hoping that it's She-Hulk. What's her real name?
Jen Waters?
Yeah.
Correct.
Help me out, Adam.
That could be an ABC-esque show. I liked the idea of it being Kate Bishop, though. I feel like that's a character that they could take, and she's the new Hawkeye. She's the young female Hawkeye. I feel like that's a character that they could take and make very Jessica Jones-esque. They could give her a lot of her own story, make it original, and, people aren't so ingrained in what the comics are. It's new, not too comic booky. She wouldn't require a whole lot of special effects. I think it would be a nice fit for ABC if they could make her mature enough. Now she's a younger character. And I think it'd also be cool if they could tie in Jeremy Renner to train her a little bit and to bring her along as Katie Kate Hawkeye.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that. A Hawkeye series. Thinking about She-Hulk, I don't think I mean, they could give us a She-Hulk show, but I'm not sure we'd be able to see her Hulk out that much on a TV show budget. It'd probably focus way too much on the law procedural stuff. But yeah, a Hawkeye series would be good with Kate Bishop. Another one I've been seeing thrown around is a White Tiger one. I know we got Del Toro name dropped in Jessica Jones. So I would guess it's some sort of street level type Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. type show, not as much as necessarily superhero.
Yeah, the thing I don't love about the quote is, I don't know, like, I get why you would name drop Jessica Jones, and I like Jessica Jones. If they could kind of replicate that in some way, that would be cool. But it feels like ABC, like, oh, we don't know how to come up with an original idea, so we're going to try to copy what they're doing over at Netflix, like, it always worries me when people in Hollywood or in television immediately are like, oh, this thing was popular, so let's try to replicate it 15 different ways and jump on that bandwagon. And so, I don't know, it's if it's good, I'd be really happy about it. I think, those ideas are all interesting. I don't know, I mean, usually She-Hulk doesn't Hulk out, she actually is that way all the time. So that seems like that would be a major challenge for them. They might rewrite that. But anyways, yeah, it'll be interesting. I just hope that with all this stuff, that they try to create properties that really live up to their intellectual property well, and that like live up to the source material well, instead of trying to copy what's already been done with Jessica Jones. So,
do you guys think this is the show that Ridley's working on, or is he working on something completely different? Because he's still working on a show, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a possibility. When I wrote the news up, I said it could be the same thing. People have talked about Miss Marvel with him. I hope that this, like, I don't know, Jessica Jones and Miss Marvel are totally opposite ends of the spectrum for me. Definitely. As far as Miss Marvel is just so hopeful. But, if it's a dumb, producer that's like, well, it's going to be focused on a woman character, so it'll be just like Jessica Jones. Maybe that could be a Miss Marvel show. But we also don't know that Ridley's necessarily doing Marvel, so. Anyway, yeah, I don't, or Miss Marvel. So yeah, I don't know. But I think it's possible it could be the same thing, absolutely. All right, moving on to the next news. We had some first responses to Runaways. Apparently a couple episode screener has gone out to some different journalists. And they're going to be talking about, all the talk has been that it's very positive. Some people have compared it to like Riverdale. It's kind of a teen kind of mystery thing. I've not watched Riverdale, so I don't have too much thought about that. But the reviews seem to be good. Let's start with Adam. I think you watched Riverdale some. What do you think of that comparison?
It was a very pleasant surprise, for being a show on the CW, it got pretty dark and heavy at times, and I'm like, whoa. So it's kind of reassuring that people are kind of comparing it to that. I didn't mind Riverdale whatsoever. I think shows on the CW, like The Flash and Arrow kind of get tagged as these bright and shiny shows and really clean and stuff, but it kind of touched on some really weird subjects, and obviously it wasn't going all the way to Netflix gore and stuff like that, but yeah, I really like that comparison. Riverdale turned out pretty good. I liked it, so if Runaways is anything like that, I think it should be A-okay.
Now, Rhiannon, I was going to ask you, it seems to me this is really early to be showing screeners for a show that comes out in November. Is there any possibility that they push this up after the Inhumans kind of negative buzz and then Defenders kind of being mixed on reviews? Do you think there's any possibility they push this up to try to get some good Marvel TV news out in the internet?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. There's all kinds of other things. Hulu may have press junkets coming up, and they may want folks to have, the screeners in time to prepare for something like that. I haven't looked if they're doing, I guess the TCAs are all over, the summer TCAs. Sometimes those drag on forever. They could have all kinds of reasons for putting it out now. I don't think Hulu would be so concerned. I think the networks really drive the screeners situation, but Marvel definitely has a say in it. So I don't see anything into it. They probably just were getting their fall things out and wanted to make sure that it got in front of people's eyes before they got all caught up in the fall lineup new television. But maybe maybe Marvel does just want to wash everybody's palate. But we're still going to get to see Inhumans in the next week, so it's not like they're going to be able to drown out that news. Or maybe, it seems like they would want to rebrand that news or find a positive spin on it rather than having us forget that Inhumans exists.
Yeah, that's true. It is weird. I feel like the Inhumans promotional push now has gone into such bizarro land that I don't even know what to make of it anymore. So, but yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited about Runaways as a show. And I like that people like it. Reviews are not everything. There's things that are badly reviewed that I like and vice versa. But it's always nice when we have something coming out that we know that people are excited about.
Yeah, I hear Inhumans press has gotten to the point where they're mailing the press plush Lockjaws to convince them to be happy.
Yeah, I want my Lockjaw, man. I've been waiting to buy one. I can't find one at the store. Why can't
I would say all the nice things if you
Marvel.
sent me a plush lock. They were selling them at San Diego, but they were $50 and I wasn't waiting in the line.
Yeesh.
Yeah, I was hoping they were going to give them away to the folks at the Inhumans panel, but they didn't.
Well, just for the record, Marvel, I will be reviewing Inhumans and for the website, and I do want a Lockjaw plush. So if somehow those things were to interact together, my integrity could be bought for a plush dog. That's all I'm saying. So, all right. There has been some debate with Thor Ragnarok and its runtime. So Taika Waititi has already said he thinks that the final cut will come in right at about 100 minutes or about an hour and 40 minutes. But then we saw a report on, was it like Fandango or movietickets.com or somebody like that it was going to run 2 hours and 10 minutes. And Waititi directly responded via Twitter, and he goes, well, he said something odd, they're kind of right because it's a 100-minute movie with 40 minutes of credits at the end of it. And so I guess my only question on this, does runtime matter to you guys? I know we've gotten where we report on that kind of stuff at MCU Exchange, but do you go into a movie caring about how long it will be or not?
Not really. I might let me think about going to the 9 o'clock showing, go, I know this one lasts 3 hours, I'm not going to go to a late showing, but with Marvel stuff, not really.
Yeah, that I'm not too concerned. There was a report sometime where it said that the runtime was slated to be 90 minutes. And that would have been concerning because that seems a little too short. That's a glorified Inhumans episode.
Yeah, I think it shows, if nothing else, I think these stories show how interested and media saturated these Marvel movies are now. That speculation about runtime is something that people really want to know about, Yeah. So Daredevil season 3, we got news through our sources exclusively at MCU Exchange that it's supposed to film late October through June, which really fits with I think what we heard earlier with Rhiannon's proposal that the deadline news was about a fiscal year that would end June 30th of next year as far as the shooting of these shows. Rhiannon, just want to recap for us real quick what this means about overall what we're getting and when we're getting it?
Yeah, so this points to me for a 2018 release. They usually take 3-4 months after the end of filming before releasing. I guess Punisher will be a lot longer. It's looking at more 6 months. We don't even have the official Punisher release date, but it'll be about 6 months after the release. After the end of filming, if not more. So theoretically, I guess they could hold on to it and do like a January release, but I'm kind of hopeful with the schedule that it means we're getting 3 shows in 2018 and that Daredevil will be November-ish. When we can finally see more of Matt Murdock if he doesn't pop up in any of the earlier shows.
Right, and the earlier 2 shows would be Jessica Jones 2 and Luke Cage 2 earlier in 2018.
Right, yeah. Right? The next one we should see, I mean, so we have Punisher coming November. Jessica Jones should be sometime in early 2018. They usually do March, but it could be earlier. Luke Cage after that, and then Daredevil. I mean, there's no reason to believe that they'll be airing them in any different order than how they're filming them. So I'm hoping it's, March-ish, July or August, and then November.
Along those lines with Netflix, Finn Jones is apparently starting fighting training now for Iron Fist 2, which will still be months away from actually filming. I think we have a December film date. So apparently he's taking really seriously upping his martial arts game. Adam is our a resident Iron Fist lover. Are you excited to see Finn Jones doing a little extra training for this next season?
Hell yeah, I think everyone is. I don't think there's a single person that's opposed to it, That's a really glorious thing. I think that was one of the biggest criticisms of Iron Fist season 1. Obviously I'm not sure if it was him or the fight coordinator or whatever. But yeah, I think pretty much everything I've seen, no one's like, oh man, everyone's pretty much excited. He's taking it serious for 4 months before filming starts.
I'd also like to propose that this could just be him, justifying that he's beefing up. We have every reason to believe he'll pop up in Daredevil season 3. So he could be getting his fighting in shape so that he can be ready to pop up there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting now that these defenders know each other. It's going to be interesting to see how much they show up in each other's shows. Like, I can't believe that it's totally coincidence that Jessica and Luke are filming at the same time. I would think it would be so natural for them to be in each other's show, at least for a cameo here or there. And some of these things are getting harder to extract. Like, Jessica Jones should have Hogarth in it, and if Hogarth's in it, it kind of feels like it should have Foggy. And it kind of makes sense if Foggy was around that there'd be talk of Daredevil. Like, how they're going to actually pull these things back apart now that they put them together is going to be really interesting. So, all right, let me do just a few more news things, kind of real quick style, and you guys can jump on board if there's anything that you are interested in knowing about, talking more about. James Gunn has talked about how Nova is something they've definitely talked about as joining in the MCU. I don't think that he really said much other than, yeah, we've talked about it, and we've talked about lots of stuff, so we'll see if that comes soon or not. We also are hearing that Norman Osborn will appear as a voice in Silver and Black, and they're specifically having him be only a voice so that Marvel can cast a actor for Norman Osborn down the road in a Spider-Man movie. And then finally, Tom Von Lawler is officially going to be Ebony Maw in Avengers Infinity War. He's not an actor I know particularly well, but he really looks like Ebony Maw, so that kind of makes sense. I think it's going to be mocap for that character anyways. Any of those news things interesting to you guys?
Not really. Nothing stands out to me.
All right. So usually this is the point in the podcast where we... Is someone being picked up by aliens? I'm just curious. Is that...
It's me, and it is. There hasn't been that going on.
I don't know.
There's helicopters circling my hotel. Sorry,
They
guys.
finally found Rhiannon. She's been on the lam all this time. Now they found her.
Damn it, guys. I gotta run.
Oh, that's funny. So usually this is the point in the show where we would do some reviews. So you guys know next week we will be talking about Inhumans, and then once Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. start up their weekly run on ABC, we'll talk about that at this point in the show. We'll do Inhumans just like we did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. think we haven't really talked too much about this, but once Runaways and stuff starts hitting, we'll probably do those things as well. We'll just have to figure out that schedule, and we don't want to bore you to death with tons and tons of reviews, but we do want to talk about everything. So that is coming soon, but this week, obviously, there's nothing to review. Next week, we'll talk about Inhumans. All right, so here's what I want to do, guys, for our main conversation today. Obviously, you reviewed the end of Defenders without me last week, and in a great twist of irony, you guys thought that I would be the one who kind of hated it, and I liked it a lot more than I think both of you did. So we want to keep the Defenders talk going a little more. I think it's just naturally the thing to talk about. There's still stuff to kind of unpack from it. If you have not yet seen Defenders, you'll probably want to skip ahead to the mailbag because we'll be going full spoilers here. So in a minute here, I'm going to just let you guys tell me what you didn't like, and I will try to convince you of why you should like it. Maybe we'll do that. But before we do that, I'm interested in this, particularly for you, Adam, but really for both of you. What show was better? Did you like Iron Fist better or Defenders better?
You can't put me in the spotlight like that. I don't want death threats. I am halfway through my third rewatch, and I like it better. I don't know, man. If I had to choose Defenders or Iron Fist, I would probably choose Defenders. Like I told you, I would choose Defenders probably for the sole reason that we could continue being friends. But other than that,
I did threaten our friendship if Adam had the wrong answer to that question earlier this week. Rhiannon, what about you, Rhiannon? Which one did you like better?
I mean, I definitely like Defenders better because, from the simple fact that it has all of the characters there, and it has so many good moments. I mean, I like Adam. I've gotten through my second rewatch, and I've rewatched other parts a third time, and it is getting better with rewatches, but it is all getting better despite all of these little details that nag at me, not, when it should just be awesome in general. When, like you said earlier, you wanted stuff to be planted in the Netflix MCU that was going to hold, that was going to pay off later. And I feel like this show should have been the payoff of 65 episodes of planting things. And instead it was just like, oh, this would be a cool answer. Let's just do this.
So I think the thing that I was really so I listened to you guys after, last week after I finished and published the podcast, I listened back. And I think the part that was really interesting to me is I feel like it's a lot about expectations. I think if you listen to our Iron Fist review and our Defenders review, I think that our Iron Fist podcast was actually a lot more positive than our Defenders podcast. And you know me, I'm fine with being honest and critical, and so that's not a bad thing. But I think that's because we expected so little out of Iron Fist that when we actually saw it, we were like, oh, that's not so bad. And we expected so much out of Defenders that when we saw it, we're like, oh, that really wasn't what I was hoping. And so I do feel like there was an expectations game in it. I think it wasn't helped by Avengers. I think on the film side, Avengers was such a home run as a team up that I think people were hoping for that same kind of magic again with Defenders. And I liked it. I'll admit though, it was not like an Avengers style, like euphoric, like, yes, this is everything that I wanted out of this team up, So, I don't know. What do you think? Do you feel like expectations played into this at all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I expected the people that wrote the Defenders to have watched and understood the mythology introduced in Iron Fist. But I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. So
let's get into that. So we've been doing this all week, guys. So this sounds rehearsed. It's kind of rehearsed. But so go ahead, like shoot at me. Like again, I am almost completely positive on this show. I really enjoyed it. What was the stuff that really kind of stuck in your craw about this the way that they wrapped up Defenders.
Okay, I mean, and I believe this is one that I've sort of latched onto in the past week, so I'm hoping I'm not being repetitive of something from last week. But in my rewatch, what is completely irritating me is how deeply these five fingers of the hand were entrenched in Kunlun, how much of Kunlun and Kunlun's fight against the hand is completely based on these five characters. Iron Fist, his job was to defend Kunlun, yet he was never even told that there are these five leaders that should not enter at all costs. It seems like, hey, you're guarding Kunlun against the hand. Here's something for you to identify who is the hand. I mean, this seems like a basic detail in the hand is your enemy. Okay, is he just supposed to wait for somebody to come up and go, I am a member of the hand, for him to know that they are against him?
So you're saying there should have been like mug shots at the Kunlun post office of like, these are the five guys that you look out for.
Yes. If they're sketched on little rocks, if they are, to me, I mean, even just a description, there are 2 women and 3 men of different ethnicities. It seems like that would be part of the whole hand legend, that every single member of Kunlun would be educated on from day one, because evidently these 5 people are enemy number 1. So, explain why that shouldn't bother me, Caleb.
So, here's my take on it. I don't think people in Kunlun live... I got the sense that the thing that the Five Fingers got in trouble for was that they were using the dragon bones in order to have long life, and that it was kind of this sacrilege to use the dragons of, Shao Lao and his fellow dragons as a way to preserve life, and that was unnatural, and that, death is a natural part of who you are. And so I would just say that while these 5 have been alive all this time, the leadership at Kunlun has overturned hundreds of times because generations have died and new generations have taken over. So of course, like, some of the identity of those people and some of the legend gets sketchier and sketchier and sketchier and gets less and less real, because the people in Kunlun were not alive to see those people. So when you see it from the hand's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, these are the 5, but that's because they haven't died. Whereas the people in Kunlun, they've been, generationally, it's just been watered down over time. Does that make any sense, Adam, or am I totally just making this up?
Sense. I don't know, man. I'm kind of I don't know. It makes sense, but it just felt like all the Kunlun stuff was pushed together and mushed, and I'm not sure if they cared to think it out as much, I don't know.
Did I make it any better for you, Rhiannon, or is it still just as annoying?
No, it's still just as annoying.
Okay.
But
this is going to be very fruitless... But I have to say,
like, some of the explaining away has helped me. I mean, as far as in my rewatch and everything. Like, I feel one of the reasons that I enjoyed my rewatch more than I did the first time watching is that I've had a chance to come up with answers to all of these questions. Because, like, on my first watch, one of the things that really bothered me was from the first cut, the hand's weapons weren't poisoned anymore. And somebody, I said that, I was like, that really bothers me. Doesn't that bother you? It was an Iron Fist fan that's not Adam. And they were like, well, no, it doesn't really bother me. Maybe they just ran out of their poison. And I'm like, okay. I mean, because they very consistently in Defenders, the hands never poisoned their weapons. While that was a very big thing in both Daredevil and Iron Fist. So, I was like, okay, I'll just say they ran out of their poison and won't let that bother me anymore. So some things are better with the explaining away, but explaining away that the Iron Fist knew absolutely nothing about how to identify the hand, I'll give it time. I'll sit on it.
Well, and I do think that it's clear to me that the version of the hand they're giving us is a hand that is, it's falling apart. It's an organization that's on its last legs. Like the Five Fingers are getting desperate and they're running out of time and they're frustrated and they're making mistakes because they're rushing to get things done faster than they should. Like that's that whole conversation with Gao and Alexandra at the beginning, right? Like that timetable, it changes stuff and it messes stuff up. And Alexandra's like, well, I'm dying. I don't care. We got to get it done. And so I think a lot of people were expecting sort of this almost omnipotent organization. And I think it was an interesting story to tell that this is how the hand crumbles. But I think people were hoping for them to be kind of more comic book-esque, or at least in a position of strength than a position of weakness. So, but anyways, I mean, I can get way off topic. I think a lot of this is about, this tells us the story of how the hand moves from the Five Fingers to an Elektra-ran organization. And so some of that made sense to me, that, you know, why aren't there more ninjas? Well, because they've lost a lot of them and they've lost their resources, and they probably used a bunch of their resources to attack Kunlun. It seems a little sketchy of if they ever got to Kunlun or not, but if they did mount an offensive against it, it would make sense that it would like really take their numbers and deplete them. So, yeah, anyway, I think I find it really interesting to ask a question of, what would it look like for an organization that's thousands of years old to finally crumble under its own weight? And I thought that was kind of an interesting part of the story. Adam, what do you think? What else has bugged you about this show?
I don't know, the whole Dragon Bones thing, supporting New York City. It's not like they had the best plan. The best thing they could have done was at the bottom of the hole have some sort of portal to Kunlun. It makes sense having that behind the Iron Fist wall. And it might be at the end of the Dragon Bones or something. Who knows? But I just episode 7 and 8 just kind of mushed together. The whole I almost called her Jessica. Colleen stumbles on the C4 and stumbles on the plans, and it just so happened to be the plans Jessica and Matt found, so she steals them out of evidence. Yeah, I have a hard time believing them imploding a skyscraper and not getting a single charge whatsoever. Not a single one.
See, I have a theory on this. I think the hand covered it up. I think whatever bout of the hand is left, they want to keep this secret so that they can rejuvenate themselves as an organization. So that's why I think they didn't get charged. I don't think it was actually superior lawyering or whatever. I think the hand were covering it up.
That would make sense. But I mean, who else would have been readily available then from the hand? I mean, 3 of them were decapitated, and Gao and Nobu 2.0 were at the bottom of the hole crushed, weren't they?
Gao
yeah, but we
off.
know. Yeah, Gao did sneak up. We also know, though, that like a character as good as Nobu was like a second in command. So you would think that they've got operatives all over the place. They have other entities that could be doing things. I mean,
I gotcha.
We don't really believe the hand is done, right? Like, I think we all think that they're coming back for Defenders 4 or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's another Hydra. It's always going to be around.
Unfortunately, at this point.
I want to talk about a criticism I heard that I'm really interested in getting your guys' take on. So I heard a lot of people say that they really felt like Sigourney Weaver was wasted.
Yes.
That, they didn't get enough out of her. So, first of all, I immediately compared her to Ben Kingsley in Iron Man 3. To me, it was very much the same play. You get a prestigious actor, you try to build up what people are expecting out of their performance, but then you make them the red herring to the actual villain. And I heard people even say, well, yeah, they only had her so that you could be shocked or surprised when she died. But to me, that's a great use of casting. Like, when I hear that criticism, what I hear is, I wish this show had been more predictable, right? Like, I wish that Sigourney Weaver would have been the character that I had put together in my head that she was going to be. And to me, it's a great twist and it's a great surprise when you cast someone that prestigious and then they don't end up being the main villain. It allowed them to develop the Elektra storyline kind of under the radar, so to speak, you know? And like, as soon as it happened, I'm like, oh, all this stuff. Like, Sigourney Weaver existed to make Elektra more of a villain. And I felt like it worked, and I'm okay with people kind of misdirecting me that way. Because, like I said last week, episodes 1 through 5, there weren't enough moments where I was like, whoa, you know? But the second that she died, I was jumping out of my chair like, are you kidding me? They really did that? So, I don't know. I like the surprise. I feel like it made the show less predictable that Sigourney Weaver was not the character that everybody anticipated her being. Does that make any sense, or is it still just a waste of her ability?
I didn't like it because we saw it in Luke Cage. If they hadn't done the same kill the iconic villain and at the end of the second act in Luke Cage, then I would have been much more comfortable with Sigourney. I had no issues with Elektra turning out to be the big bad and her taking on the big bad role. It just didn't entirely work for me. And it wasn't as shocking because I felt like I saw it before.
Absolutely. You know, building up to this, they always, you know, made it seem like they had this big bad boss they had to report to, you know, and we never got that from her. You know, from right out of the gate, you know, we find the very first time we see her and we find out she's dying, you know, so we never really got that strong of a character, you know. There was a little flashback sequence where she got in some hand-to-hand combat with Elektra, but besides that, you know, I understand she's dying and so on and so forth, but I don't think I ever felt that powerful, you know. They tried to show us that she was super high-end, you know, she always wore whites and grays and was pure and things of that nature, but I didn't think she was a strong character, and her getting killed was surprising, but I don't think it was that big of a role to begin with, I guess. I just felt like an actress like Sigourney was wasted in that type of role.
Yeah, I felt like the one scene, I mean, her death scene, you know, she's talking to the other Five Fingers, and she's kind of built up and a little more confident because they've just taken Iron Fist. And I thought it was kind of cool how she starts into a monologue right before she dies, where she's like, you guys have tried this before, you have tried to defeat me before, but you will, you know, like, she started to, like, be Sigourney Weaver, you know, like, she started to play into that, and I'm sitting there like, okay, here it comes, and then she falls over dead. Like, I don't know, like, I felt like she was just starting to fulfill that potential, and then they killed her. And again, for me, it just worked as like an emotional thing. It was like so surprising and pulled the rug under. And I guess we watch so much, like when we watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., sometimes we fuss about how predictable it is and how you see storylines coming. And I really did not see Weaver dying coming. And so I liked that it was that surprising. But all right, before we close up on Defenders for kind of a while, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Any other thoughts about the end of the season, or anything that we didn't talk about last week that you wanted to touch upon in your rewatches?
I ended up covering the eighth episode. Adam wasn't feeling well the other day, so I did the review for it. So, and I just want to say I am more positive about it this week than I was last week. I felt that things came together a little more organically watching it the second time around, watching it with some answers in my head. But I feel that it all came together despite all of these little things that they could have had ironed out better.
Yeah, I'll agree. It's a much better watch on a rewatch. You know, my favorite whole entire scenes of the episode were probably the bits in the Chinese restaurant. You know, just seeing them interact, and the dialogue was nearly flawless between the four defenders. Then you throw Stick in there. You know. After seeing this, I probably am more frustrated. I could probably say after seeing Luke and Danny together, I'd much rather have a Heroes for Hire show than a second season of both of those characters, you know, especially since Both of those shows ended up pretty stale towards the end. I loved Jessica's quips. I mean, I'm catching those all the second time around when she tells Matt she's going to beat the sight back into him. I LOL'd at that. It's just perfect writing for that character. But it's a better watch the second time around. I loved Luke and Danny together. Colleen. I remember you saying something about Colleen last week about how whiny she was, and I picked up on that this time. She flat out says, "Hey, we need some help. We need friends," and then they get those, and she flat out says, "Oh, I don't like these people." I picked that kind of stuff up the second time around, but I don't think my opinion on the show's getting any better. They had a huge opportunity with Sigourney Weaver, and I think that fell kind of flat. And it just didn't feel like it was resolved. They collapsed the hole, but the dragon bones are still down there. So I mean, the hand could be going after them again, and now the wall's not there, so they don't need Danny. It's just I don't think we're close to being done with the hand. And my fears now are the hand is going to end up being like the Netflix version of Grant Ward or something.
Oh man, they could bring Grant Ward back with their resurrection powers, right?
Oh, if they wasted the last bit of dragon juice on him, I would be so pissed off.
Okay, but if Elektra constantly rises from the dead like Grant Ward, would you be upset?
No, I don't think so, because Elektra's a zombie. We know that, and then Grant Ward's just shady guy that manages to come back from life various different ways. Who knows? They could tie it in and Hydra's actually hand, maybe.
I was gonna say, just because I wasn't around for you guys' review, I know a lot of people didn't like how much fighting was in the last episode. I actually kind of loved that. I felt like they finally paid off the promise of Daredevil Season 2. I've said a couple times on the podcast that I felt like the last episode of Daredevil Season 2 was like, oh, there's so many ninjas, and then it was like a one-on-one fight between Nobu and Daredevil, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, what happened to all the ninjas? So I was happy to have lots and lots of fighting. Also, I felt like the Matt and Elektra stuff at the end was really good. I feel like both of those characters went to new, interesting places, and they were very true to who they were as characters, and so I don't know, all that stuff down in the pit and the fighting and Matt and her, I don't know. I was on board with all of it. So, just for the record, I loved it. So I was really happy. And that was what's so interesting to me is so many people did not like the fights down there. Felt like it was too long. And I was just like, yeah, this is what I've finally been waiting for. Like, let's go. So it was interesting to me that I liked that so much and other people did not.
On the rewatch, the fights at the end were more enjoyable for me because I wasn't waiting for it to get to that next plot point. I could just enjoy them and know where they were going. But the first watch, I just wanted to get on with whatever we were doing. And yeah, I still have issues with Colleen, a mere mortal, being able to take out some ancient member of the hand that's been able to survive for centuries and da-da-da. Like, all it took was one really good student and some swords. Or her katana.
So I agree that I don't want to ever see Bakudo and Colleen again. Like, that is a subplot
Yes.
that I have no interest in anymore.
Yep.
I do think that some of the reason, though, the hand survived so long was because they were so snake-like. Like, they would always, like, slither into the shadows, that they always did stuff on the down low. They were never, like, out in front. So, like, when it comes to the Five Fingers of the Hand, I never assume that they're, like, the world's best fighters or that they've survived, thousands of battles. I always got the sense that they were just sitting around, they're like vultures that always pick the carcasses of stuff after it gets destroyed, or they're plotters or schemers, but not necessarily great fighters. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So, people have also said they don't feel like Matt, like they didn't understand the motivations of Elektra at the end. I think Elektra is just crazy. I think she wanted to die with Matt. And so she did everything she could to get him and her in the same room so they could die together. And I think that fits to kind of a psycho merchant of death that Elektra kind of becomes. So I was okay with it. I know others weren't.
Have we discussed the mysterious absence of all the extra ninjas and hired guns and, Bakudo students and all that? Why when the Defenders went to Midland Circle were they greeted by the remaining fingers? I just assumed it was the Hand, so they have huge armies of ninjas. Like you said at the end of Daredevil Season 2, that's kind of what you hoped, and I've seen comments here and there saying, they need to recoup and recover, but you'd think an organization like that with that many resources, they would just have some ninjas that hopefully could snuff out the Defenders so the bosses didn't have to.
Yeah, I think they used a lot of those resources, though, to take Kunlun. I think that's, the reasonable answer, is that, taking Kunlun was, the greatest fight of the Hand's, or not even taking it, but the assault on Kunlun that was hinted at the end of Iron Fist, that was the greatest battle of the Hand's history, and they just had heavy, heavy attrition from attempting to take the city.
But Elektra said it was her.
I don't know if we can believe Elektra there. That's interesting. I don't know if she actually did that or she's just manipulating Danny.
And then Gal said something,
okay.
I'm not sure if she said she didn't want to live forever, but she did say her main goal was to just live until she could go to Kunlun again. So why didn't she just go there when it was open with the rest of the Hand?
So, yeah, the way I reconstruct this is the Hand did a massive assault on Kunlun at the end of Iron Fist. In the end, they actually don't succeed and they get repelled. And so then they're a small herding organization that then does a Hail Mary with the Dragon Bones to try to give themselves enough time to try again.
Okay, until Iron Fist Season 2 comes around and we find out that the Hand was never in Kunlun. So it's totally
exactly. No, a lot of these, I am writing checks that I'm really hoping I can cash with the Iron Fist Season 2 writers. Iron Fist Season 2 could completely throw out a lot of these explanations and just blow them up. And I am totally admitting that the fact that I have to construct these theories and explain them is proof that they didn't do their job right on Defenders, because we would all just know these things,
Yeah.
Yeah, because if all Gal really wanted was to go to Kunlun, obviously she could have gone and walked right past the Iron Fist that was guarding it and been there, because the people there don't remember what she looked like, or the story of her, or anything. I don't see why she couldn't have just gone back to Kunlun.
Unless Lei Kung is now, see, this is interesting, because the traditional mythology is that Iron Fist is the strongest warrior of their population. But what if the elders of Kunlun are just significantly better than Danny? That she knows if she shows up that Lei Kung will have her head on a platter. You know what I'm saying?
I can see that. How did she get her powers? I was hoping we'd find that out. We never did.
The Force, man. Obviously, she trained as a Jedi.
She is a Jedi.
This is the point we've reached as we're now going into Star Wars mythology to make any of this make sense. All right, I think that wraps up our talk about Defenders. I think this debate will go on for quite some time, probably until Defenders Season 2, which I'm sure will happen eventually. We'll go ahead and get into our mailbag. And I got a couple things here to share from that. First of all, some notes from, we always say that iTunes reviews are one of the best things that you can do for us so that you can help the show. And we recently got 2 great iTunes reviews. So I'm going to pull those up real quick. The first one comes from Glover M25 back in July. Said, "This is a well-organized, entertaining podcast. The host and commentators each have a different background in the MCU, either as fans or as reviewers. They do a good job of avoiding spoilers if that's a concern for you. The podcast focuses on the MCU specifically, so don't expect too much in terms of comic book or celebrity news. The podcast stay close to a little over an hour and do so very consistently. They also attempt to acknowledge all listener comments and questions." So thank you for that, Glover M25. Derek13KY said, "Just found this and have been binge listening. Love the info you all give." So thank you to you guys. We appreciate those comments. Over on SoundCloud, Cash Craig left a few comments. He asked where Gao goes at the end of Daredevil Season 1. We thought that maybe she was going back to Kunlun, but it appears she can't. So he thinks that's another continuity issue. I just think she went to China somewhere. You know, her, like, secret factory that suspiciously looked like New Jersey in Iron Fist. That's where I think she went.
It was Staten Island.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was Staten Island.
I know that it definitely, there's some times where like the scene or like the shooting location takes me out of a show, and when they like went to China and then it was just like a regular looking factory, like at least do some establishing shots of them and like the Forbidden City or something. I don't know. Also from Cash Craig, said he would not want to see Kilgrave return. He thinks that Jessica has kind of a well-earned finale in Jessica Jones season 2 or just season 1, and would not like to see that undone. Over quickly to MCU Exchange and the comments there. There was lots of stuff here. Adam was doing a good job of responding to everybody. There's some stuff from Alvin about Matt Murdock and him being kidnapped and all that kind of stuff, and whether that would reveal Matt's identity. I feel like they're setting up to where Daredevil Season 3 will open up and everyone will know his identity. Like, if they're going towards Born Again, doesn't it make sense that the events of Defenders are the thing that outs Matt?
One, I think it's not going to be going towards... I mean, I have always been on the I want Born Again train the longest. I think they're giving us that one shot. I think the story is going to be something completely different, but I think they are moving towards... I mean, one of the Matt Murdock things in the comics is that his identity is a very, very loosely kept secret. Everybody knows who he is, and they've definitely gone there. I mean, everybody in that police precinct has to at least suspect that he's Daredevil. It's just going to come down to what Danny Rand is doing while he's missing.
Dave on the website talked about several things, but at the Dragon Bones was just saying that New York was definitely held up structurally by the Dragon Bones. That's kind of how I understood it as well. Chris had a lot of comments as per usual, and he was talking a lot about the Hand's motivation and just feeling like he was not sure what was going on. Love Waffle had lots of comments as well, and he also was somewhat critical of the storyline and how things went on. So and Mark was saying that he wished that there had been more interaction with Ward. I do think that not having Ward was a very sad day. I would have enjoyed a little injection of Ward into the show. So, all right, I think that does it for the mailbag. As we said earlier, we're going to talk about Inhumans next week. That comes out on Friday, so I know I have my tickets for Thursday night. Me and a theater of approximately 6 other people, I think, are going to be watching it. So. Hopefully it'll fill up by then, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you for listening to the podcast. You guys can support our show by following us at our new Twitter handle at Marvel News Desk. You also, the best way to send comments is through that Twitter handle as well. You can also communicate with us via SoundCloud or the MCU Exchange posts, which will still be happening every week. And if you really want to help the show, the biggest thing you can do is leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. In the end, the biggest thing that we love as a podcast is for people to listen to it. So listening each week and subscribing and telling your friends about Marvel's News Desk is the thing that makes us happiest. So keep on listening and let your friends know it's going on. That does it for this week. I'm Caleb. You can find me on Twitter at Caleb A. Borchers, CalebABorchers. And Adam and Rhiannon, where can we find you guys?
I'm on Twitter as Shot of Patron. And if you're trying to match me up to articles on the MCU Exchange, I write as Brooklyn Wallace.
And I'm on Twitter at Adam Barnhart, BarnHardt.
There's 2 other things I forgot. One is, I was thinking we should do some of our own legacy numbering. We've never put numbers on the podcast, but now that we've rebranded, we should just go back and pick which podcast we want and be able to say, this is Marvel News Desk number... So maybe I'll do that as some legacy numbering. The other thing is, I think we're interested in maybe adding some new sounds and music. If you're one of our listeners and you would like to help us out with like a cool theme and you're good with music, we can't promise we'll use it, but if you want to work something up and we like it, we'll use it. I should mention that our icon now for Marvel News Desk, it's like a Captain America shield. That was done by Tim Cox. You can find him on Instagram at Tim V Cox. He's a graphic designer and a teacher and a friend of mine, so that's what he did. If we get some, I don't know, cool music that we can put on the podcast, we will shout you out every week in like credits like this. So yeah, if you're good at that stuff, send it on in. I think that's it for this week. We will be back with you guys to talk about Inhumans next week. Talk to you later. Bye.